YouTube. Okay, let's see, what else do I need to do here? I want to share my screen because I do want to talk about the treasure hunt. Oh, this is really, this is really bad. Okay. Well, let's just try this. Action. Welcome to Show and Tell. I'm Billie, and I'm really bumbling around today. But before we get started with several people who are knitting Genie, I wanted to just mention a couple of things, a couple of announcements. First of all, is there's a treasure hunt going on where in past episodes of Show and Tell Knitting Podcast, you're to look for these 4 Tamara de Lempicka paintings. You need to subscribe to the channel. You need to follow me on Instagram at billietoy, and the spelling is right there on the screen for you, or it will be in the show notes. And then you need to private message me either in Instagram or on Ravelry or wherever you can hunt me down to tell me the episode number and the timestamp of where you saw this picture. And the deadline is only a few days away, August 30th. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention again. Now let me put on the screen a picture of Genie. One second. I want you to be able to see the sweater that we are working on. Here we go. Okay, so this is the sweater that a handful of us are working on. I'm not sure what happened to some of the other people, but at least we have Dawn and Jilly and myself here. So 3 of us will be able to talk about our genies. But this is the sweater from Susan Crawford's Vintage Shetland Project book. The pattern is sold separately. The link to where you can purchase the pattern will be in the show notes. And I've said right here that it's 46 stitches to 4 inches. So it's very tiny on a US 1 needle or 2.25 millimeter using lace weight yarn. And she specifies 9 colors. So the sweater that you're looking at in this image has 9 colors in it. I know that Dawn is using fewer colors. She'll tell us. Let me get rid of this, and then I'm going to ask you both to introduce yourselves as you have in the past. Your name, where you're from, how many years you've been knitting, and you may as well go ahead, since it's just the 3 of us, and show us your sweaters, where you're at, and yeah, let's just chat about what's going on, if we have problems, or if anybody's up to the steeking or whatever.
I wish.
Oh, not I. Okay, so Dawn, why don't we start with you?
Yes, I'm Dawn, and I live in Dorset on the south coast of England. I learned to knit as a child, but I didn't do any knitting really in my adult life until about 5 or 6 months ago. During lockdown, I decided to start knitting again. And this Genie is probably the hardest thing I've ever tried to make. So it will be a great achievement if I can finish it. Do you want me to show Genie now, or?
I think so. I think
yes.
You can. Yeah.
Well, I'm on row 88 of the size 3 color chart.
Oh, so we're neck and neck.
Are we?
Yeah.
No, I can't see myself actually, so I hope you can see what I'm showing you.
Wow.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why you can't see yourself though.
I can see myself in a little thumbnail, that's all.
Oh, you just have to change your setting, your view setting to be gallery view.
Gallery view. Oh, I probably have to do that later. I can't quite see where it is, but could you see what I've been knitting?
Yes.
Yes, it looks fabulous.
It's taking me a long time. Each band is taking about a week. It's slow going, but you know, it's a story of the tortoise and the hare. I think the tortoise will win. Hopefully.
I found the same for me. It's about a week, but after Jilly talks about hers, we'll come back and I'll share.
Oh, well, I haven't made a huge amount of progress. And in fact, I've got some problems. I'm hoping that maybe you guys can sort of point me in the right direction.
Well, wait, tell us who you are and tell us where you're from and how many years you're knitting.
Right, I'm Jilly. I'm from the Isle of Wight. I was taught to knit as a child, and I've kind of fell in love with knitting, fallen out of love with it. You know, I've had this love-hate relationship with knitting where I get great enthusiasms for it and make stuff, and then suddenly I have a break. So I'm just returning from a break right now. I'm just finishing off. I've got a project to do in front of the TV, which is a very simple jumper. I'm binding off on the very last bit of sleeve. I'll have to find myself something simple to do in front of Netflix. This is not that project. I have started by, actually, I find the little charts in the pattern, when you print them out, they are far too small for me. So I'll just give you a quick flash. This is on A3 card. So I had it printed out and it's nice and firm because I thought I'm going to be with this for a year, and I want to be able to see the pattern. I don't want to be kind of squinting at it thinking, have I done it or not? So, and I've kind of got a little, I've also put little thread samples right at the bottom there. Sorry, I'm going to get this in front of my camera. I don't want to give too much of the pattern away. But you can see I've stuck them there and the names next to them. And the reason I've done that is the kit. And I mean, this might help somebody if they're thinking about making it and perhaps want to reduce the colours. What's not really very obvious when you look at the pattern, or even when you look at the colour chart on screen, is you've got 3 yellows there. There's one that's a deep gold, a sort of pale yellow, and another yellow that's kind of halfway between the two. But to be honest, you have to really, you could easily mistake them at a glance if you weren't concentrating. Hence I thought I'm going to make sure I can color match everything. I'm not going to suddenly start on the wrong color. Of course, you've got the key, the little key at the side that helps too. So that was my prep, and I started off doing a gauge swatch in the round. And I cast on, I think it was, to give my 104 stitches. So that allowed me to do basically 4 pattern repeats and a steek bit as well. And I'll just show you, because I actually ripped this off the needles. I was so appalled at it. So there it is. And it was actually the yellow segment, which is the repeat segment, wasn't too bad. But what I got into difficulty with, and I'll show you my other side. Let's see. Was I've actually bound in all of, woven in all of the ends, but there were so many ends, and the bit where I've seen, I'm sure it was the video I watched, Susan Crawford, where you kind of just loosely doing the color and then kind of pick it up and twist it in with the next row. Oh my goodness, my attention was all over the place, and I found I was getting in such a mess there that's why I say I threw it off the needles. So I can't. But nevertheless, I thought I might better get some tension information out of that, and so I washed it and blocked it yesterday. And because I've got quite a lot of pattern repeat, I can easily get, I did a 2.25 needle, and I'm getting across 4 inches or 10 centimeters, 44 stitches. So I'm 2 stitches narrower. But height wise, I have got 54. I mean, I've across the inch, I've got 13 stitches, which makes 54 stitches across 4 inches or 10 centimeters, which means that the jumper would be a lot smaller lengthwise than intended. The problem is I've got a very loose gauge, and when I look at the knitting itself, it looks kind of loose to me. It doesn't look nice and neat and compact. Now, it could be because I'm knitting with a bird's nest of DP&S, because I don't like doing magic loop, and it might get a bit tighter when I'm using circulars and so on.
I'm not doing magic. Oh, you mean for your swatch magic?
Yes, for my swatch. Yes, yeah. Because I mean, I'm going to go straight to circulars as soon as I've got 400 odd stitches on there. But with only 104, I ended up sort of, as I say, it felt like I was knitting with twigs, and I was thinking, oh no, I don't think I can stand this. So I just wondered whether you had any thoughts on the tension, because if I go up a gauge, it's going to be really loose.
Well, I was going to show you mine because I am exactly at gauge. I'm not using her yarn, but I do feel it's loose and I do feel it's uneven. Before I show you mine, I was going to ask you, these 3 yellows that you mentioned that are so close in tone, do you have those knitted together? And could you hold that up to the camera so that we could see the subtlety of that?
Well, I'll show you. There is, I don't know how clear that is.
Oh, yes, so I can see.
The bottom is the dark Pharaoh's gold, and then it moves into the buttermilk. And I started using the other one right up here where I've lifted it off. But I've got the yarn here.
You can see the difference. I'm feeling like the colors that I've chosen, you can't really see. Like I have this pale yellow and a pale pink, and they sort of merge into one another. Let me highlight myself. Do I know how to do? I mean, you would think by now I know how to do this. I don't know.
Well, while you're thinking about that, I mean, this is Pharaoh's gold and buttermilk, which you can see there's quite a big contrast. This one is so close to the Pharaoh's gold. I don't know if I can. Trouble is, there's lights on in here. That's the one where it's really difficult to tell.
I think that would drive me mad while I was knitting. I think it's really important to be able to see the difference on your knitting so that it looks like what's on the chart. And on the chart, the coloring is significantly different so that you could identify. Well, just since we're talking about it, here's right in here, I've got a pale pink and a pale yellow just surrounding that hot pink. And they blend together. So you know what? If I make a little mistake, 1 stitch is off by 1 unit, I don't bother to even correct it because no one will ever be able to see that. In fact, even if I knew that the mistake was there, I'd have a hard time finding it. They're so close. But I'm okay with how it looks. So Dawn, I think I am just at roughly the same place.
So I've got
3 full dark stripes, and I'm just beginning the 4th. I don't know what row that is. But Jilly, just to point out to other people so that they don't think that they have to blow up the chart, I don't know what Dawn is doing, but I can tell you what I'm doing. Most of the time, I'm sitting in front of my computer when I'm knitting. Not always, but most of the time, because I'm staying home so much right now. And I have on my computer screen the PDF of the pattern, which is how I purchased it. I didn't get it from the book. And I can just, control C, I can enlarge it until it fills my screen to the amount that I want. And then what I do is I try and isolate the part where I'm working, and I shrink the screen down so it's just showing me that part so that I can be watching a podcast or doing something else on my computer. So that's like just in the lower right hand corner, a few lines, that I'm currently working on, but they're big. They're not hard to see. Initially, when I pulled up the pattern, they're very tiny. Yeah. But I just enlarged it. And there is a plus and minus button. It doesn't always work for me, but Control C makes everything bigger. And so I'm fine with that. This is not knitting that I can like take out. I went to the doctor's office the other day. I didn't even bring it with me. Right now, I'm on a row that's just one color. I could have brought it with me, but yeah, this is something that I think just isn't going to travel well. I did want to mention, yes, the other people, it's a pity. I think people have been reluctant to join. Oh, good. She figured out how to come in. Great. Nancy, yay. Just come off mute. So before you introduce yourself, Nancy, because I'm in the middle of saying this, because I knew that I was ahead of some of the other knitters, I stopped knitting on the sweater and I started knitting a beret. And it wasn't that I was afraid that you were all going to get ahead of me. I was afraid that I might start to run out of yarn. And I definitely didn't want to compromise the yarn for the sweater because I'm knitting a beret. The part that is the pattern, I'm using single strand, but I don't want the whole beret to be thin and flimsy like this. I want it to have more body to it because I've used this same yarn. I had leftover when I did my last project, which is like a forest green teal chevron cardigan that I'm using leftovers in this. I made a beret with that doing single strand, and I don't like, maybe it was not single strand, but anyway, it's too soft. It sags. I wanted to have a little more body. So I'm using 4 strands of each color on this, which is going to eat up a lot of yarn. And I thought, I better wait until I'm done the sweater, now that you've all had a chance to catch up to me. And then I'll come back to this and I'll see what I have left over, because every color I'm going to have a different amount left over. And here I can use any combination, any quantities that I want. So if I have a lot of the green left over, which I will because I still have for my other project, I can make it up with that. Anyway, that's that. Okay, Nancy, good. I'm so glad that you found your way here. Yes, please tell us. Well, everybody knows you're Nancy now that I've been saying Nancy. Tell us where you're from, how many years you've been knitting, and then tell us about your project, because I think you're working on 2 of these, but maybe you're finished with the other one. I don't know. So go ahead, just tell us. No, you're on mute. We cannot hear you yet. You have to click your little microphone in the lower left. Come on, you're almost there. I know you're getting there. Well, while she's figuring that out.
I got it.
Oh, good.
Can you hear me? Jilly's, I'm very empathetic to Jilly's problems because I've got the same set of situations. I would appreciate if she could show hers one more time up real close so I can see it.
Right.
I've got the same fit, as I say.
Going to try
yeah.
Can you see that without it? Is it? I don't want to get. Yeah.
Can you see mine?
Yes.
You're right. Those golds are a nightmare. In fact, I just can't believe they're almost identical. The gold colors. But anyway, yeah. And the stitches are tiny, but it's the yarn is it's beautiful. It's like touching out. I don't want to say butter because it's more beautiful than butter. It's silky and soft. It's just a really sensual experience to knit this thing, even though it's going to take forever and I'm really behind.
Yes.
It's a real pleasure.
No, there's no behind. We're all going to be working on it. It's taking all of us a long time. People are knitting maybe different sizes. I know a lot of us are knitting size 3, but yeah, there's no race. I think we've all just kind of settled into the concept that this is a long project. It will not be done this summer.
Well, you're right. I did have 2 going. I picked up another lace yarn, but I thought I was real smart and I didn't wait enough time before I joined my rows and I managed to twist them. So I had to go back and undo everything on that when I'd started because I don't know how to fix a twist, when you're pretty far down the line. So I had to just stop with that one. Finally got the kit and I splurged. I got a ball winder, which I've never had in 50 years. And it's really nice. So, it's a learning thing and I'm having a great time. I just wish I could get it done a little fast. I'm also a little concerned this is going to be a little big for me. I chose the next to the last size and it's pretty big. So I may have to eat a bunch of stuff and gain some weight or something. I don't know.
No.
I thought this was going to be for someone else.
Well, my daughter, I might give it to my daughter-in-law, but my daughter and my granddaughter are smaller than I am by some. So my daughter-in-law, maybe.
Whoa, she's going to be one lucky person.
I don't want to give it away. This yarn is just
well,
so
maybe
luscious.
you can shrink it a little bit.
Yeah.
There's somebody there wearing a Genie already.
Oh, Courtney. Well, Courtney, you're on mute, so please come off of mute. And Nancy, I want to come back to you, but because Courtney, this is her first time, let's welcome her. Thank you for finding your way here. Yes, Courtney was already well underway, I think, before I started the knit along. But I asked her to please come in and share with us so that we could be inspired. It looks great. So you obviously have the kit. Use the kit.
I do. Yeah. And the yarn's a dream.
Before you go into it, tell us who you are, where you're from, how long you've been knitting. We want to know you a little bit.
So I've been knitting since 2009. Fell in love with it. I learned how to crochet when I was young. Didn't fall in love with that. But I live in the Bay Area. I'm a nurse practitioner, so I'm on my lunch break and I had a patient run late. So I joined the Zoom call late. But lunch is a good time for me.
Excuse me 1 second. I have a lot of international viewers, so they may not know the Bay Area refers to the San Francisco Bay.
Yep,
and
California.
Right, California.
So I do a lot of Fair Isle. This is not my first Fair Isle project. I'm glad it's not. I wouldn't recommend it for a first project because it's silk and cashmere. And the silk is tricky, and I'm happy to let you know like any tricks, but it's probably better if you just ask me, like if you have a question. I did the second size. It fits perfectly, as you can tell. I did the Patterson. That was my first project out of the book. And despite gauge and everything, it turned out way too small for me. And I did the first size. So I'm really glad I sized up on the Genie. I would recommend anybody looking at your charts and seeing where your motifs are going to fall, because when I finished this, I realized that I had this yellow band from the size that I did. And I thought at first it really bugged me, but then after wearing it, I decided it didn't bug me that much, because in the pictures, there's a little bit of yellow, but then she immediately launches into the first motif. And I found that disappointing that mine didn't look like the book. But
size 3 is like that.
Yeah. So it's more
motif right away after the ribbing.
In the picture. The buttons I got off of Etsy.
Your buttons didn't come with the kit?
No, they don't come with the kit.
I ordered can you, Courtney, can you please tell us again where you got those buttons? I'm looking for buttons.
I got mine off of Etsy, and I ordered them from a company in Canada, and I can send Billie the information. I just don't have it right now.
Great.
But it was a Canadian company on Etsy, and they shipped very quickly. And I actually probably ordered the buttons when I got about this far, and I had them well in time before I finished the sweater, needed to do the ribbing. I just say my biggest probably advice is just to when you get to here to the armholes, make sure that you're paying attention to the chart, because I actually had started knitting, and I was so happy knitting. I just going round and round, and then I realized I missed my armhole division, and then I thought I would have learned, but I did the same thing on the neckline. So just pay attention to your chart.
What do you mean by armhole division? Isn't it where you start adding in the steeking stitches?
Yes, you have to cast off 8 stitches or however many on your size. I think it might actually be 20 stitches. And then you have to add on the next row, you have to do the cast on for the steek.
Oh.
So you're going to have a little hole. It's probably about the size of a quarter when you, and in like 2 rows. And so does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It sounds like a slit.
It'll be a slit, yes.
Okay, so you bind off and then you're casting on.
Exactly.
2 rows later. Okay.
Well, 1 row on the next row.
On the next row. Okay. So like a buttonhole is going to appear.
Basically like a buttonhole. It'll look like a buttonhole, but it'll be a big buttonhole. And then like I was telling Billie in an email, I never reinforce steeks because this isn't, like I said, my first Fair Isle project. I usually just knit in wool, and wool is sticky and it sticks to itself and you don't need to reinforce. I don't do anything on the machines or anything like that. But with this, because of the silk, and it has a huge tendency to slip and run. Like if you drop a stitch, you better grab it as fast as you can because it will unladder like you will not believe.
This yarn also, and this is not silk, this is 100% merino, but lace weight, and it's kind of slick. I've noticed the same thing. On occasion, my needle will pull out. I'm careless when I put it down, and it'll go down maybe 4 or 5 rows. I catch them right away and I try and, ladder it back up. But I am definitely afraid of not securing it. I've never steeked before with, woolly wool, sticky wool, or silk or anything. This will be my very, very first time steeking. So I'm completely paranoid about it. I don't want this thing to just run away. So I'll be securing it in probably multiple ways. But
so I used
what did you do?
Embroidery floss.
Embroidery floss.
In DMC embroidery floss, I used 744, 745. Those 2 colors will pretty much match the gold in the Genie sweater. And you can find them at Joann's and Walmart and Hobby Lobby and any of those places.
And why did you use embroidery floss and not just regular thread that you would sew with?
Well, it is a regular thread. It's like what you use for cross stitch, or I guess you're probably talking about sewing machine thread.
Yes, sewing machine thread.
So I use 2 strands of an embroidery floss, and if you've ever worked with it, it's 6 strands in like kind of think of it as like plies. It's 6 plies. So I would separate.
I have seen it in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So you separate it down to 2, and that's what I would use for. Basically, I kind of whip stitched around the steek where I was going to cut it on both sides. And then I did the cut, and then I actually tacked the inside of it down. So let's see if I can get my camera up close enough.
I used to know how to pin, and I could really zoom in, but
So I don't know if you can see the steek or how well you can see the steek. But I kind of whip stitched it down with the yellow. So you might see the yellow little threads inside right there. Just because I wanted to reinforce it because of the silk. Took me 3 months to make this sweater, and I don't want it falling apart when I wear it.
You know what? I'm going to pin you. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. Can you show us that one more time?
Sure, I'll try.
Yeah, it's probably hard to, it's still a little bit blurry, even though you're really close.
And to me, the trickiest part of the whole thing was the buttons, because I'm anal retentive and I'm a perfectionist, and I wanted them to look right and be lined. So I think I probably tried the sweater on 100 times before I was like happy. And I used a big piece of yarn, like a bamboo silk blend, and I strung them on and like kind of just secured them with one loop and before I sewed them on in place. So that was the trickiest part to me, was just the button placement.
It looks fantastic. Now, the original one that Jeannie herself, Jeannie Jarmson, knit, I noticed it's a little different than Susan Crawford's.
It's a child size. If you didn't know that, if you read the book, it's actually a child.
I don't have the book.
Sweater, and it's knit in rayon.
Her buttons seem to come together. It's closer. I guess the whole neckline is closer in because you're saying it's a teensy size. I'm going to try and achieve that because I liked how that looked. It gave it a certain geometry.
Yeah. So if you've read the pattern, it's basically knit in the round and there's no decreasing on the neckline. It's really interesting the way it's done because you build up the center by doing like 2 extra rows between the buttons, and then you fold it and like kind of like this, you fold it, and then you put you sew it down, baste it down, and then you put the buttons on so that it secures that.
Oh.
So are you saying you could manipulate the shape a little?
Well, that's what I mean. This is just a big circle. There's going to be too much fabric if you do it the way the pattern tells you to do it, because you're building this up so that when you fold it back on itself, it's even with the front to make it kind of like a trapezoid in a way.
Yeah.
So you're going to have 2 extra rows so that it will kind of be flush with the rest of your neckline. And then, like I said, you're taking your ribbing and you're folding it like this, right, and then you're sewing your buttons down.
We might want to have you come back.
Yeah,
we're all at that point.
I think I'm going to cast on Vaella out of the book next. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just cast that on because I have the kit already. And then at least I'm doing something out of the book and I can show you how to steek if you need me to show you how to steek. It's not rocket science. I've done it multiple times. It's not scary, but I do recommend doing it on your swatch first.
Yeah.
And
good idea.
And I will tell you right now that the kit, when I looked at that yarn, I'm like, oh my God, this is never going to be enough yarn to make this sweater. And I have a ton of yarn left over. The only color that I almost ran out of was the dark yellow, the Phantom, I think almost gone. That's the least amount of yarn I have out of any of them. I even have an extra skein of buttermilk. So don't be afraid to swatch. Don't be afraid to make a big swatch because you will have yarn.
That's good to know for the people who bought the kit. Nancy bought the kit and Jilly bought the kit. Dawn and I are non-kitters.
It's okay.
Yeah. Can I ask, Courtney, when you were doing the color work, I mean, I've noticed in the chart that quite often there might be your drop a color and then it will pick up, say, 5 or 6 rows ahead. Did you carry that that yarn up the edge, or did you cut it off? Because when I did my swatch, I found even the little bit I did, managing all those yarn ends, I got into a real muddle. So I'd just be interested in your advice on that.
So the way I do my color work, my stranded color work, I knit with one yarn on each hand. I'm not a very good English knitter. I learned to knit continental. And then when I come to the place, so the join is here. So you're going to have your rows changing on your side until you get to the steeking sections. And then when I get to here, when I got up to the armhole and the neckline, you put your beginning and ending round is in the armhole. So
right.
When you get to that point, I just kind of let the ends hang. And I actually like, if you're a Fruity Knitter follower, I do Andrea's way of joining my yarn. So if I'm working with wool, I use a Russian join. That's my favorite because it really minimizes the ends. And if with this particular sweater, you can't do it because it's not sticky. I do about 20 stitches or so before I get to the end of the round. I add in that extra color and I'm weaving it sort of in and out. Like basically I'll take my yarn in one finger and then I'll throw it over the other. I lock it in place, I flip it back. And I go back and forth so that end is secure before I get to the end of the row, so to speak. And then I do that as I weave out the color that I'm dropping and then I snip it. So basically I had very, very few ends to weave in at the end. And like the times that I had to weave in was when I forgot and I got to the end of the round and I'm like, oh, well, but I feel like the tension is so much better if you start it early and you add it in and then you drop the other instead of having that weird holy kind of gap at where the one row ends and the other one starts.
That's a great tip because I've been doing a variation of that. I'm adding it in just one stitch before the end of the round or the beginning of the round. So I have been weaving in a lot of them, not all of them, because I didn't realize in the beginning how daunting it was all going to be with all those. Like I could show you the inside of mine. Let me find the end of the round. Yeah, here. So I have already woven in all the ones in the ribbing, and then I started doing it up here. And then at some point around in here, I started weaving them in by similar method to what you're saying, but I like your concept of doing it ahead as opposed to after that end of the round marker.
And so when you're doing it on the ribbing, you have to only carry it across on the knit side because you obviously can't lock it on a purl side or that strand will show to the front.
I did my knitting in the round.
Yeah, but the ribbing is knit one, purl one, knit, purl, right? So if you're adding in that the yarn that you want to start on the next round and you put that float on the front, it's going to show. So you'll only like carry that, add the new yarn that you're bringing in, you'll add it only on and carry it across the back only on the knit stitches, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
I don't remember. That was not a problem for me. But there it is. Those are all trimmed off. And as you Brits say, done and dusted. But I still have some of these that I didn't do that with. But not a big deal. Watching television, I can easily do that. That's mindless. Anyway, whoa, it's some work. How many months did it take you, Courtney, from beginning to end?
3. Like 3. Almost to the day, like 3.
Wow. Wow.
And that's when I'm like you, it's like you said, it's not necessarily a TV knit, but I can knit Fair Isle with the TV because I've done it so many times. And I actually feel like one of the reasons why I like Fair Isle is because it's a charted, and I can follow a chart, and I have my ring markers set up literally every 24 stitches so that if something happens, I can easily fix it. And I mean, it's stockinette. It's not like.
And things are happening. Every once in a while, I'll say, okay, the pattern didn't come out right. And then I'll count. And I have 23, because sometimes with these stitches are so tiny, sometimes when I'm going, like inserting my needle to knit it, I'm picking up the row below or the stitch next to it inadvertently. It's happened a few times that I didn't have 24 stitches, but you find out right away, unless you're on the rows, those odd rows where it's all one color, no pattern. But most of the rows have some, patterning going on. And if it doesn't work out when you get to that stitch marker, just go back and count. I also have them every 24 stitches. You can see them. And I hope that everyone who attempts this does that. Otherwise, you're asking for a nervous breakdown.
Especially on the rows where you have these two golds that are like almost, because it's hand dyed. And so when you're working with the buttermilk and the Aurelia, I think, and the Phantom, all, they're like, because they're hand dyed, one section might be dark of one color, and then the light section of the other yarn might be almost like you can't tell which one is what. And so at least it's in that section where it's either 1 and 3, 1 and 3, and then on the next row it reverses. So it's kind of like a pyramid. Just count that section, just like 1, 3, 1, 3, like the whole way across, and it will stack up. And even if you make a mistake, no one's going to notice.
That's what I said before you came on. My colors, let me show you. My colors that are in that section are these.
Yeah.
Now, they're not close to my eye, but those little teeny stitches, you can't really discern the difference. And I was saying before you came on, if I put yellow where there's supposed to be that pale pink, no one ever in a million years will know. So I don't sweat it. I just keep going. It is a lot of fun, isn't it, everybody? I mean, I hope the people are watching. I think a lot of people are intimidated by this. They're intimidated by the gauge. They're intimidated by the number of colors. But the good news is there's no sleeves, there's no collar, there's no pockets. There's none of the other little details that many other vintage patterns come with. So it's kind of, just pretty much straight knitting, and then the steeking. And I think, we're all experienced enough knitters that we want to try and add in some new technique to further our knitting abilities. And it's good to challenge ourselves. So, wow, this episode has really gone on. Does anybody have anything else that they want to ask or talk about? Because I have maybe 1 or 2 more announcements.
Oh, if Jilly has her colors handy, I'd like her to hold up her Aurelia, because I was getting a little bit lazy about putting them back in the marked bags. And I'm just so nervous that because you can't believe how close the golds are.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yes.
I was convinced maybe that my Aurelia was,
This is the Aurelia in this hand. This is the Pharaoh's gold. And although the lights are shining on it, you can see there's not much difference. So that's why I've ended up creating a little swatch of all of, this is what you may not have come on, Nancy. I printed out my chart and I put all the colors down, stuck them down and everything. And I've also done the same thing on all of my labels as well. So I've got a little piece of the, here we are, this one. I put a little bit of the yarn around each label with so it's like, to be sure.
That's a great idea. I took my balls and put them in baggies with the number of the, number on it. But I've that would guarantee I've got the right ball, because I'm kind of lazy about putting them back in the baggies. So that's a great idea.
I stick when I do the ball winding, I put the label inside and I knit from the outside of the ball instead of the inside.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Okay.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Once you're well underway, you sort of get to know which colors, because the light sections are always the same. So you can always look back at your previous light section, and the dark sections. Well, I don't want to, really give away too much, but you'll see that a sort of, pattern emerges, and you'll always know if you just look back. So in the beginning, not so much, but by the time you get through like 4 or 5 of those bands, you sort of see what the concept is.
I still lack 20 rows getting out of the ribbing. No, I'm really behind.
I just thought
The ribbing goes on endlessly.
Does anyone feel that it's going faster when you do get out of the ribbing? It's, since I'm a thrower, I'm hoping that when I can get to knitting straight, that it won't be so slow. I was discouraged because I was so far behind, and I started really pushing myself, and I went from like roughly 40 minutes a row to down to about 30. But when I noticed I had dropped 10 stitches all around the row. So I slowed back down to make sure I catch each stitch. So it's slow. So
ribbing around the neck and the armholes take probably 24 hours each. It goes so much faster than the bottom of the sweater does. So don't even, just once you get that through the bottom ribbing, it's good.
Courtney, I was glad to see that your ribbing is a way looser than I anticipated this would be like a normal sweater and kind of cling to your body, and yours obviously doesn't. So maybe this won't be. I used the
same needle size across the ribbing and the sweater. I didn't change anything.
Well, it just seemed like it's looser than I would have thought a ribbing would be for my size, but I'm kind of encouraged now it will fit me after all and won't be gifted.
And it's all about how you play with this too. So how much you tuck under, and
are your buttons toggles or
they're shanks.
Shanks, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought it could help Nancy and Jilly a bit. I'm only using 7 colors and not 9. So those three yellow colors, you can't tell the difference between very much. I'm just using 1 color there. I think it's A, H, and I on the color chart. And I'm using pearl, just 1 color.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
How smart is she?
But I don't have the kit. I'm using my own colors. So for A, H, and I, I'm using 1 color. It makes life a whole lot easier. Although if you've got the kit, I don't know whether you'd have enough of the 1 color to put them all together.
Probably not.
Probably not. Although what I've seen of the pattern, it seems to me that the Aurelia, which is the one that's kind of close to Pharaoh's Gold, is mainly used in the dark bands. Mm-hmm. It's not in the yellow contrast band, so that does make it a bit easier. It's just a question of making sure you pick the right one up as you're about to weave the color in.
Yep.
But Billie's right. When it's in you can't tell the difference. You can't like I have it where, but Pharaoh's Gold is my darkest one, and the other 2 yellows are essentially identical when you're looking at it in a stripe. It's can't tell after it's been knitted.
I think the effect is, although it's subtle and you can't see it, it does make a lovely, very soft kind of blending of colors in the pattern. And I think the hand-dyed nature of the yarn, where it sort of changes even along a length, is really lovely.
Yeah.
I can just tell you that it is the most lovely thing to wear, and just if you're working on the kit, just keep going. It's daunting, it takes a long time, but it is going to probably be the most beautiful piece that you have ever knit. It is like the softest thing that you will probably ever hold, and it's just a dream to wear. There's no itchy, there's no scratch. It's
I'd like to know the name of that book.
I'm in the Bay Area, and it's like on a 90-degree day, I can go outside and wear it, and I do not feel hot. I don't feel sweaty. It's perfect.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Nancy, the book that the pattern is in, it's by Susan Crawford, and it's called Vintage Shetland Project.
Okay. And there are more.
And the link is in my show notes.
Great. Okay. Well, I read them, but I didn't make the
Okay,
connection.
so I just wanted to wrap up by saying the next time that we meet will not be on the same day of the week. So I've moved the date. I hope it's okay with everyone, to September 17th, which is a Friday. Is that okay for everybody?
Next time.
Yes.
Yes. So it's a little bit longer than 3 weeks, so it gives us an opportunity to do another probably 3 stripes. At that point, I'll be ready to separate for the steek panels.
Will it
So
be
that'll be
again?
very exciting.
Will it be again at my 2 o'clock?
Same time,
All
just
right.
different day of the week. So anybody out there watching, if you want to tune in live, it's this time slot. I would love for some of you to start posting pictures where you can, either in the show and tell group on Ravelry. There's a thread set aside for the Jeannie KAL, or if you're an Instagram lover, hashtag Jeannie KAL and put some pictures there. Courtney, it would be great if you put some photographs of the inside to show your steeking and how you turn it.
They're already up on Ravelry.
Under your project page?
Yeah, the only thing that's not there is the finished object photos, because I keep hoping that, like, instead of every single photo that, if you've looked, they're all on the mannequin. So I was hoping to do some with me actually wearing it instead of just throwing it on the mannequin and taking photos, but I can do that too.
Do I know your Ravelry handle?
It's unrvlngfast. So it's
Without
you.
the vowels?
If I'm smart enough and tech savvy enough, maybe I can try to put it in the chat.
And you're Silicon Valley. You definitely are tech savvy. Don't give me that.
You mentioned handles. I've run, I guess, as Ruby Dax on Ravelry, and maybe that's why you didn't see that I had indeed registered for this session. Maybe that's.
No, I knew you registered.
I went back to the last thing and plugged in the notes on Zoom to get in there, the numbers on Zoom to get in there. I could not get in on the.
We have to practice separately, you and I, when the world isn't tuned in. Okay, so and let me see if I have anything else. No, that's it. So hopefully I'll see all of you on September 17th. Happy knitting. Nancy, after I end the meeting, maybe we could chat again, or I'll email you. Let's do it like that. Okay, everybody say goodbye. Thank you. Thanks
Bye.
for being here.
Let's see.